My name is Cornell Green, and I am the Failure Guy. Welcome to the podcast. On this episode of the Failure Guy podcast, my guests are Steff and Jeff Gaudette. Steff and Jeff, thank you for joining us, and welcome to the conversation.
Thank you so much for inviting us, Cornell.
Good to be here.
Okay, it's my pleasure to have you guys here. So, I'd like to start out by, of course, I know Steff very well. I also know you, Jeff. But let's start by introducing yourselves to our listeners and viewers out there, and give us a little bit about your background.
My name's Jeff Gaudette. Obviously, this is my wife, Stephanie. My primary job is I work with Wyndham Destinations in a sales department. Been there for about 5 years. I've been in sales for much of my career. Prior to that, had a construction company, and I've got 3 sons, and Steff has 3 daughters and a son, so we have 7 between us, and we're up to 5 grandchildren. So that's a little bit about me. Always excited to do things like this, Cornell, so thank you again for inviting us. I'm looking forward to how this plays out tonight.
Okay, so 3 plus 4, you guys are kind of like the Brady Bunch plus 1 here with the split.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so Steff, come on. I know you. You're not always this shy. You're like a little kid that's always rambunctious until guests come by. So open up a little bit and tell us a little something about yourself.
True. I also come from a strong sales background, but I came home out of corporate about 3 years ago prior to COVID, and just been trying things, see what I like. I've just been kind of bumbling around, and I came up with the Steff and Jeff show. So I'm the founder of the Steff and Jeff show. Jeff is my co-host, and we just started thinking about what do we want to do in life, and it's basically have fun, enjoy adventures. So we started the Steff and Jeff show.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess we might as well just go right into it. The Steff and Jeff show. What exactly is that? What's that all about?
Steff and Jeff show started because I came home out of corporate, and I was home and I was getting into my daily routine, enjoying life. COVID happened. Jeff and we still had 2 teenage kids at home at the time, and Jeff and the kids came home to do school and work, and that didn't work for me. But then, the kid after COVID, the kids are moving out, they're going to college, and I'm kind of standing around wondering, what am I supposed to do? I don't have a corporate job to go to, and everybody's doing their thing, and where is my fun? And then I realized I'm probably not the only woman who feels that way at that point in life. And so I just started asking around, talking to people, and found out that a lot of women are concerned about their marriages and concerned about what's going to happen. We've been married a long time, 20, 30 years, and the kids are going to college, they're leaving, empty nesters. What are we supposed to do? And I started talking to people that I know who've already crossed that path. And, like you've been a stay-at-home mom your whole life. Your husband retires and comes home. What now? And how are you still married? Like, how did you not kill each other? Especially when you have corporate men coming home that are used to running everything, and then they come home and think they're going to take control of the house. And so I just started listening. And the thing is to get out of the house, go do things, have adventures, have fun, just start making life enjoyable again.
Okay, now that's quite interesting. So I'm processing a lot of stuff in here. First of all, you were looking for a sense of fun and enjoyment now that you kind of like saying, you know what, corporate life, that was nice, but adios muchachos and muchachas, I'm done with that. And also kind of facing empty nest syndrome and wondering, how am I going to deal with myself now that it's, I'm here all the time and there's no kids around. And also, but see, here's the interesting thing that I found. And in all the time I've known you, Steff, this is kind of new to me, actually, since I've known both of you guys, that it was about, how do I handle the fact that the house has been my domain? And if now dude's going to be around all the time, look, I love him, but this is my queendom, if you will. You're welcome here, but I run the show.
Yes. You're welcome to enter, but tread lightly.
And see, that's something that's interesting. A lot of people don't, we hear a lot about, work life balance and all that sort of jive and, have some fun, do what you love what you do. But this is something, I'm a single guy, I've been single all my life, not exactly saying that like it's a celebration or an advantage. And something that a lot of us don't think about, we hear marriage counseling, we've seen lots of movies and fictional accounts about marriage, but we don't think about how do you manage and maintain the various domains? Because most of the time, we're not actually with each other most of the time of our day. Especially when you have two working people, most of your waking life, you're either asleep. Well, that's not your waking life, but most of your life, you're either asleep, you're preparing to go to work, you're traveling to work, you're traveling from work, or you're at work. So actually, the amount of your day that you really spend with each other isn't a whole lot of the day proportionally. And now you get to that age, all the kids are gone, and it's like, oh, hey there, who are you again?
And you really touch on something too, because it really if I in listening to you, I go back to when COVID first happened and everyone first went home, and I was in my routine. The house was quiet, but then they all come home, and I have two kids that are each in their own room doing school on computer. He's in the den doing work, and there's noise all day long because they're all loud. They're all doing their things. And I'm used to a quiet place. But then I started to feel lonely. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much noise, but there's no interaction for me.
Oh, wow. So
Which
it's
started
a full
triggering me
house
because I'm
of
like, yeah,
Right.
good.
It's a full house of a bunch of people alone with each other. It's not a
Yes.
house of a bunch of people together. That's fascinating. That's interesting. Say a little more about that.
Yeah, I mean, they're working 8 hours a day, or they're in school 6 to 8 hours, and they're entertained. For lack of a better word, you have your interactions. So everybody's having their conversations about COVID and what it's like to be at home and not be able to leave your house or leave your yard or whatever, right? And I'm sitting there going, "Oh, who am I talking to about this? Who am I calling? No one, because I've spent my whole life, career, and children." And that's what really triggered that's what really got my brain rolling in the motion of what is all of this about.
Okay.
And if I can add to that, Cornell, the COVID was definitely a trigger. But what she's speaking about happens even without an epidemic like COVID. We as in our individual work lives, or our individual lives, the part that we weren't together prior to this coming together. We as humans, we invest a lot of energy into raising the kids. A lot of mothers, fathers, they put a lot of energy, and that it's very fulfilling to see your kids moving forward and getting through soccer practices and school and music lessons and concerts and all that stuff. The other side of it, we put a lot of energy into our careers. We try to climb that corporate ladder, fighting for that next promotion, that next raise. And what we came to realize was all that energy we're putting out into the universe in all these great places that we need to, but sometimes the energy wasn't being placed into this relationship. Like we pass like ships in the night. We come home and hello, let's eat dinner. But all of a sudden, what we found with COVID was here we were, the kids were moving out of the house and everything, and then you're like, now what? And so we set up the course to keep life as an adventure.
Okay.
And so we literally find ways to, they do something exciting, to find each other's interest and to look at each other and what is she excited about? What does she like to do? And then try some of those things, and vice
Right.
versa. So
Okay. You're kind of like, it's interesting, even though so how long have you guys been together? Not just including the marriage, but the total time you guys have been in a relationship. How long is that?
We've been together 10 years.
Okay. Okay.
And
Okay, so the interesting thing, and something in your comment, Steph, I work from home, and I've worked from home since 2010. So for me, I remember when COVID first hit, and a lot of my friends, a lot of my former coworkers, a lot of my peers from high school, they're all complaining about, oh, I'm stuck inside, I can't go anywhere, and I'm thinking, what are you talking about? I don't see this because for me there was no change But then I had to think back to like, before 2010. It's like, oh, wait a minute. Remember when you used to have a 4 hour commute? You used to spend 10 hours a day. You used to go out at night. You used to hang out sometimes with your coworkers. This is what they're missing is the world doesn't track like you do. You're a homebody and a home business, but most people are not. So that
Yep.
was quite a paradigm shift for most people.
And for me, I was not at that time. I had come out of corporate just 3 months before the pandemic. So I
Ah,
had 3 months at home that I was really just giving myself time to decompress and get a rhythm of not going to corporate, not going
mm,
to that clock in job, or like where you have to be there at a certain time and you're guaranteed there's going to be a certain number of people in the building when you get there,
right.
right?
So
Like, yeah,
yeah, so you were kind of just finding your rhythm,
I
and
was
then
just
all of a
finding.
sudden, it's like, excuse me, guys, I'm trying to get settled here, and you guys are throwing the whole thing into the kibosh.
Yes.
And the other side of that, that for me, it was exciting. I always, enjoy my time with Steph. I was excited, man. I get to be at home around here all day long. We can eat lunch together. We can, to me, it was like a super exciting situation.
And she
And
was
not
probably
only
kind of like, settle down, Sparky.
Oh yeah, yeah. He was really gung ho. He was super excited. And then you have the dynamics with the kids. My son was a senior in high school and he had been homeschooled. He wanted to go to school for high school for the purpose of having that graduation in a school. Like in a homeschool environment, you can still have your graduations, but for him, he wanted the high school experience. So we put him in school and now he's at his senior year and he's back on the computer full time.
It's
And
like,
so there's
seriously,
that whole.
this again?
Yeah, yeah. So it's that whole dynamic of just adjustment that just really made me take a step back and look at family life, look at relationships, and realize that we need something different in society.
Right. Now, this is a fascinating conversation. And as I said, I've known you guys for a few years now, but I've never really probed into the Steph and Jeff show. I've kind of, on a superficial thing, understood what it is, but this is fascinating. And this is why, just to the folks watching and listening, at home, this is why I don't do a pre-interview with my guests, because I like it to come and hit me fresh, and I like it to be spontaneous and unrehearsed. But here's something that I'm getting from this. I know a lot of married couples. I only know one couple where neither party has ever been married to anyone other than each other. Most of the marriages I know, at least one of the parties has had a previous marriage, in many cases, both of them. And what I'm hearing from you guys, which I haven't heard, especially in a lot of post processing or post mortem, if you will, of the various marriages, is a lot of people don't intentionally look at where they are in the particular phase of their marriage. A lot of people end up where you guys are, and there's just a lot of unspoken frustrations. There's a lot of assumptions, like Jeff, I'm enthusiastic, and you're like, I don't know if this is working for me. I'm not hating it, but I need time to adjust. And rather than coming together and saying, hey, you know what? Let's talk about this and let's work this out, things just fester and seethe, and then all of a sudden it hits into an explosion, and by the time people start talking about it, it's too late. And it seems to me like you, Steph, in particular, said, you know what, A, that's not happening to me, and B, I'm definitely not the only person that's experiencing that, and let me intentionally create a process, a forum, if you will, that others facing this can deal with this again. Am I getting that right?
Absolutely. And then there's C. Jeff did experience what you were talking about, where he was married once before. He was married for a very long time, and he ended up in what they call gray divorce.
Ooh,
And your kids are gone. You have one kid that's graduating high school, ready to, and all of a sudden you're getting divorced. And that's supposed to be the best time of your life. That's what you're supposed to be
wow.
working for. You're supposed to be working for. It doesn't matter how many years you've been married. Like the kids are gone. We get to be teenagers again. But as a
Mm,
society, we forget that because we've been so busy in achievement mode and for shuffling the kids everywhere they want to go. So we're appeasing everyone else and not taking care
mm.
of ourselves.
So it turns out that at that experience, and unfortunate to hear that, Jeff. You're a really nice guy. To find out that the family and the structure ended up being the only thing that was really holding the relationship together at the end, and that's
Yeah.
got to be a blowhead. When it from outward appearances, and even as it looks like everything's going okay, and it's like, okay, the kids are gone, and so am I, and you're like, say what now?
So that's what we're doing with the Steff and Jeff show is very intentional. It's not something that um, the Steff and Jeff show created out of our intention to each other, to make sure that we don't fall, excuse me, into that trap again. And we witnessed it. Steph witnessed it with friends of hers. I've witnessed it with friends of mine. Just like you said, there majority of couples end up in that situation, and we definitely don't want to go down that path. And our belief is if we can be an example to others, maybe we can help a lot of other people. And that's really where it comes from, is that desire to be an influence in others' lives. And I'll tell you what, Cornell, trying to live life as adventure is not easy, but it's exciting. I mean, what we do, we look for ways to make things fun. And even I mean, there's a multitude of things we've done in the last 10 plus years that we've been together. So
Okay. Well, I'd like to get into the specifics of the Steph and Jeff show, but first of all, I would just like to say, on behalf of myself and the people listening and watching listening to and watching this, it's one thing for you guys to look at yourselves inwardly and look at each other and say, you know what, we're going to not have that happen to ourselves. And that, first of all, that's more than a lot of couples ever do or accomplish. But then on top of that, to say, that's good, but that's not enough. Let's take this beyond ourselves and reach out to other people. That most people don't ever do about anything. So what is it about both of you that inspired you not just to make sure that you took care of yourselves and your own marriage, but to think about others and to take it outward?
For me, it was, I'll get emotional on this question.
I saw you just get the goosebumps.
I did. I did.
That's your Oprah
Um,
moment.
for me, it was looking at my children and seeing how divorce affected them. It was watching Jeff's children and seeing how his divorce affected them. It was seeing what the divorce did to Jeff. I know how I felt when I got divorced. I know how I felt when my parents divorced. So looking at all the different sides of divorce, and I'm saying, I hate this. I don't love it. I want to change this. I want to disrupt this pattern. And that is what made me go outside of myself and start talking to people beyond just my ecosystem. Just get out there and start talking. And I realized that this is not a me problem. This is a society problem.
Well, that's really fascinating, and it's also quite commendable. I really seriously want to stress that, and that's why I position this. This is why I've created this podcast, because I want people to come in and discuss things about themselves where they faced difficult things. As you see here, I have Faliure be an acronym, which stands for First Attempts in Learning Using Real Experience. And a lot of us are afraid of facing the failure, facing where things didn't work out, to the point that we tend to get paralyzed and we don't even try anything at all because, oh, I don't want that to happen again. And so we don't let anything happen. And we just kind of stay stultified. And you guys have taken the daring step of saying, you know what, we've both been in marriages that failed before. And rather than sit here and tense up and cringe, we're going to say, no, we're going to process what happened in the past. We're going to deliberately and intentionally take our best efforts to make sure that doesn't happen. And as you said, Stephanie, I really, I'm getting a little verklempt myself here, and I don't mind saying so. To understand that we're all part of a society and a community, and everything that affects the core of a community, because the core of a community is family. And you guys know me, and you know how much my mother meant to me, the most significant person in my life.
Yes.
And I am who I am because she was who she was, and I'm the person that she raised me to be. I faced a lot of fears. I did not experience the separation of my parents. I was in diapers when that happened. But until my mother met my late stepfather when I was, well, they married when I was 12. I think they met when I was around 9 or 10. But I spent a lot of my time growing up. I'm 63 years old now. And it wasn't really until I was 50 years old that I processed the baggage I was carrying around with myself because I was so afraid of being what my father was, because my parents were childhood sweethearts. And so what I internalized, nobody told me this. This is what I internalized because I didn't process and work it out. Well, if you can know someone from when you're kids and your sweetheart and you can screw that up through infidelity, then that means, and it doesn't, but this is what it meant to me, that means that men are going to be unfaithful to the ones that they love. And so if somebody loves me, then I'm going to betray them, so I dare not let anyone love me. And as a result, I sabotage a lot of very good relationships because imagine someone, I'm my mother's son, so not to boast, but I'm a pretty lovable guy. So of
You
course,
are.
if there's someone that I have sincere affection with, she's going to fall in love with me.
Hmm.
And so to not hurt her, I'm going to ghost her as soon as she confesses her love for me. Which, what's that going to do to her, Cornell? I think that's kind of going to be hurtful. And I did this time and again. So if we don't process and if we don't have people to be exemplars of what it is to make the mistake, to learn from the mistake and do it right, we're just going to keep perpetuating the cycle over and over again. And that is what I find most admirable. And I love it. Whenever I interview my guests and I have them, I invite them because I love what they're up to. But then in these interviews, I find out so much more about the significance of what they're up to. That this isn't just, hey, let's be married couples and have fun and adventures. Like, no, let's heal the world and let's save our society by saving that core essence of society, saving marriages and saving families. And that's pretty amazing.
And I have to, sorry, and um, no, you weren't there for the fighting and the breakup and the arguing and the separating and the, uncoupling of your family, but you've spent your whole life, you spent your whole life being affected by that.
Yeah,
So in
yeah,
effect, you really were
yeah.
affected by it, although you were affected by him not being there. He was, he was absent. Your mom raised you. There's a difference in that.
Yeah.
So essentially, you were
Yeah. And I
there
think
for it
now,
all.
hearing you share this, if I was that profoundly affected, not having experienced the separations, the fighting, the whatever, what becomes of children that have to experience that? Here's mom and dad, and those are your archetypes, they're your avatars. And to see them picking at each other and falling apart, and suddenly mom and dad, you're an like you're Steff and Jeff, your mom and dad, and it's like, no, there's mom here, there's dad there, and they're not together anymore. That's that's earth shattering. That's literally the foundation of reality underneath your feet opens up like a fissure. And I can't even imagine that seeing how just the absence of my dad in all of my conscious life and how that affected me. What if I had witnessed his betrayal, his serial betrayal to her, his physical abuse of her, which is why she finally had to leave? I don't even know. Because, like I said, it took me half a century to overcome just his void in my life. If I had experienced
Yes.
that, I'd probably still be recovering. So,
There's
wow.
there's a specific incident that happened that Steph helped me see this. We were dating, and I was infatuated with Steph and excited for all the time that we were able to spend together. And there was one time we were together where Steph just froze. And I remember just giving her space and watching her navigate through her mind what she was going through. I didn't know what she was going through. I didn't know what she was processing, but I could physically see her freeze. And I just gave her some space. I don't know if we were at the beach. I went and walked on the beach and came back, whatever. And when I came back and we regrouped, she literally told me, I deserve this.
Oh,
And but you
Oh, we're all
broke
going to
up a
be a
little bit.
puddle of mud here in a minute.
She realized that the energy that she was putting into her family was important. The energy she was putting into her career was important, but she was missing this other part because of all that. And she consciously made that decision that she deserved all of it, not just
Wow.
part of it. And out of that came our growth. When I saw that, that was beautiful to me. And that allowed me to look at our whole relationship and everything, how we connect to our kids and to our grandkids and to the universe as in a whole different way. And that was the very beginning. That was the day that I knew we could do this. And
Wow.
so the Steff and Jeff show, in my opinion, started that day. And it's because of her taking that step that we honestly believe that we can be that impact for others, and we get impacted by others. So we're actually not looking to lead people. We're looking to be part of a community that leads people, if that makes sense.
That is amazing. And before I continue, I just first of all that's amazing, and thank you so much for sharing that with me. It brings to mind, as Steph knows, I spent my 20s in New Jersey trying to be a rock and roll musician, and you can see by the videos of mine you've never seen or the albums that were never on a shelf how well that worked out. And in '93, I came back to New York, started my career as an IT professional, but of course, most of the people I'd known for almost the past decade were still in New Jersey. One of whom was a young lady that I met under very unusual circumstances, but I still kept in touch with. And I remember one night, because I worked a 4 to midnight shift, she called me up, and she was quite intoxicated, and she was crying in the phone. She said it happened again, and I was like, okay.
You're muted. We can't hear you.
Uh-oh.
There you go. There you go. You're good.
You're
Okay,
back
okay.
now.
Alrighty, okay, thanks. I got a remote mic going on here. Okay, so anyway, where did you lose me?
Just the last couple sentences.
Oh, okay. Okay, so basically what I was saying was this young lady called me up, and basically, long story short, she had this habit of going out to bars by herself, getting drunk, getting picked up by some random stranger who would have his fun, and then never to be heard from again. And first of all, I was kind of shocked because I was like, wait a minute. I grew up mostly around women. Most of my friends are women. And most women I know, they have a little group of friends that kind of form that little, like I called it, the flying wedge to prevent that from happening. So I was like, wow, and I'm in New York. You're in New Jersey, 60 miles away. You don't have any friends that had your back? I was like, that's kind of strange. So I went down and visited her a few times and found out that one of the issues that I sort of discovered this, we're hanging out, and I noticed by the discoloration in the cuticles of her fingertips, I realized that she was bulimic. Not, she was anorexic, actually. She was quite thin. And, when she was young, her mom would always give her food, comfort eater. She was kind of heavyweight, so she's overcompensating. And so her self-image was very low. And so I was like, I'm not a counselor or anything, but it's like, this, you gotta tell yourself, and this is what triggered me when you said that Steph came to the realization that she deserved the happiness that she was experiencing with you. And I told her, I says, you deserve to be treated better than this. You deserve to meet a guy who's going to care about you, who's going to respect you. And you got to tell yourself that you deserve it. I said, so say that, please. I deserve it. She's like, I deserve it? I was like, are you asking me or are you telling me? Come on, put a little more oomph in it. Fast forward about maybe half a year later, she'd met a guy. They were still together. And the last time I spoke with her, she and this gentleman were about to go away for their first weekend together. And I said, wow, that's amazing. Now, why is that? She said, because I deserve it. I was like, yes, that's what I'm talking about. And it is
That's
so,
exactly it.
it's so amazing. And I had to learn that. I had to learn that I deserve to recognize that I'm not my father. I'll make my own mistakes, but I'm never going to make his mistakes, especially at the time he was still alive. And if I don't want to make even the same mistakes, just don't make the same mistakes. And trust that I am my mother's son. I deserve not only to be happy with someone, because that I always got, but I deserve to be the happiness in someone else's life without fear that I'm going to mess it up. I will make mistakes, but I will never intentionally hurt anyone, especially when I stop running away from them because they love me. And so that's a really important human lesson, is just to realize, to have the grace with ourselves, to tell ourselves, because we got so much negative self-image and down-talking going on in our minds. It's almost like culturally programmed. And to get to that moment of realizing, wait a minute, no. I deserve this. I am worthy of this. This is what's supposed to happen to me. And I don't have to qualify it or wait for the other shoe to drop. And that's such an important understanding and a realization to come to as a person.
Yeah, and the realization for me, when Jeff and I first started having these conversations about the Steph and Jeff show, Jeff kept saying, "Imagine when what it was like when you first met." He was always talking about, go back to the time when you first met. Think about the excitement. Think about the thrill, and think about the butterflies and how you felt when you first met your husband before you even knew you were going on a first date. Think about what it was like to
Mm.
go on your second date or your third date, the day you got married. And right now it's resonating with me so clearly. These conversations is that couples deserve to feel that excitement again.
Wow. Wow. Because that's
Yeah,
real and that's valid, and there's so much stuff can be layered on top of it. And Jeff, that's really amazingly insightful. It's like, remember why you're together in the first place. That isn't false. Troubles and strife and things and grown-up responsibilities and all of that can come in, and that was real. Those butterflies were real. That giddiness was real. Just being with each other and not even doing anything, just being together, and how exciting that was. That's hold on to that and recapture that. And remember, that's all yours and it never goes away. There's just more that's added to it. That's astounding.
Keeping that spark going is key, to not get the word comfortable doesn't really make sense perfectly for me, but not to get so comfortable that you just are, in each other's space, in each other's, existence, but to want to, find out what that next adventure is. What's the next thing that's going to put a big smile on her face? And what's the next thing
Mm,
that's going to be, something that we both enjoy, or something that I've never tried that she's done. And, being open-minded to the universe that's out there, and everything that is at our fingertips. Sometimes we get closed-minded or close-sided even, and don't limit ourselves. Keep
right,
looking for, cooking a meal together.
right.
Going in the kitchen and just cutting onions while she's throwing together a meal, helping her prep it, is good. It's fun and it's exciting, especially if it's something I've never had or tasted before, and start asking questions. Why are you doing this? What are you doing there? Why, and it ends up being an experience instead of just cooking a meal.
Mm.
It's really that simple of things, and you can do that with every aspect of your life, and that's
maybe not so much questioning, but yes, every aspect of
yeah,
life.
right.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow. Okay. So enough of the Oprah moments here. Let's
yeah.
get into the Steph and Jeff show experience. I mean, you talk a lot about adventure and keeping the excitement. So walk us through, and particularly for our guests who are listening or watching, what is the Steph and Jeff show?
I'll start out first, but the Steph and Jeff show is really and evolving. It starts out with us and our energy wanting to be in front of others and showing others what we believe is valuable. And then it comes to connecting to our community and really touching base on what do other people see as value. And then being that encouragement. Steph already was stating how we want to be that example. We don't want others to have to experience what we both did. We both went through a failed marriage that, had we been in this mindset, maybe we wouldn't have. And so we want to be that person that, and this is for everybody. You don't have to be in a struggling relationship or anything. With this is best captured like we captured it with us when everything is perfect. And or what I
Mm.
consider perfect, and then now how are we going to sustain this? How are we going to keep this? So our Steph and Jeff show is right now. We have visions of all the places it can go. It's a conversation. It's a continued conversation. It's retreats, it's workshops, it's group environments of different activities and fun. It's just keeping things fresh and active, and there's no parameters. It's open to wherever the universe opens us up to. We do have a Facebook Live that we do, and we ventured every subject you can imagine that just stimulates thought, stimulates thought about what if and what could you do here. And so it's something that's exciting and continually moving in a forward direction, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
And this keeps coming to me. So we talk a lot about adventure, having fun, bringing couples back together again. Um, but we also, a couple of social issues have been thrown out in this conversation. Infidelity and abuse.
Mm,
So we're not skating over that. We know those are real life situations, and we know that we believe, right? We believe there's a place for talk therapy, intervention, though we're not remissing any other type of help that people need. We encourage that. So, but I also believe that sometimes we fall into a pattern where there's not these huge, big social issues, where we just fall into a pattern of bickering. And I
mm,
believe that if you just get out of the house, because sometimes people are like, I just need to get away from this person. But what if you leaned in and went and did something fun? What if instead of sitting in the living room in front of the TV bickering about some TV show, what if you leaned in and went for a walk out on a nature trail?
that's
I just because I have a lot of people ask about us doing counseling, and there is a place for that, and we highly encourage that when needed. But we're talking about just getting out of the house and having fun,
right,
or even in
right.
the house, like
Yeah.
back to the pandemic. Nobody wants to come to the dinner table and eat, and I'm like, I'm not having this. I'm in this house, the house full of people, and I'm feeling more alone than I've ever felt in my life. And now I'm eating alone too. No, this doesn't work for me. We're
Yes.
gonna have themed dinners, so now everybody's got to dress up and come to my themed dinner, which which turned into I'm not going to put all the work into themed dinners. Everybody gets a night of the week, and you pick your theme. And so now we're having fun again.
Okay. That's fascinating, the whole collective dinner thing. Of course, my growing up years were in the 70s, so this is quite a while ago. But my mom was very big. My mom was from Charleston, South Carolina, so she was very big because she worked days. My stepfather worked nights. But every Sunday, we had a everyone around the table formal place setting dinner, which of course annoyed me to no end because we rotated the chores and every third week was doing the dishes. And I'm like, why do we have all these forks, all these spoons, two glasses, fork, spoon, plate? I'm good. What's all of this? Now, of course, that was preparing us kind of wax on, wax off for going to the places where you're going to be invited to a formal dinner. And let's be honest, these things tend to be social discriminators. Are you hip to the etiquette? And I remember the first time I was representing my high school at the opening of the Museum of Holography. I went to Stuyvesant High School, a premier a science and math high school here in New York. So I'm sitting here, and they actually, it was so she. They had two different types of pâté de foie gras, with and without truffles. So I'm sitting at the placing. I'm like, okay, mom. Okay, mom. I got you. Now, Hadji says, no, here's the thing. And she's like, no, this is how we're doing Sunday dinner. Sit down, shut up. No, don't use that fork because I said so. And it's conditioned, but also it was sitting around. And she was also very big on us sitting together after dinner. She subscribed to several news magazines. We had the New York Times Sunday edition wrapped in. We had a full set of encyclopedias, a 2-volume dictionary. And we would always watch the Mutual of Omaha Wild Kingdom specials and all the Jacques Cousteau specials. And we would sit around after dinner and we would have conversations. Even the kids, we're in our tweens, but we just have conversations about whatever was in the news or whatever struck our mind. We'd also play card games and things like that. And it was very important. Then when I moved out to Jersey in my early 20s, and I just assumed everyone's family was like that. And then
Right.
I met like people who came from much more means than me, but they didn't have that family structure. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, this isn't, because, you grow up on Father Knows Best and Leave It to Beaver and Happy Days and all this kind of stuff. And so you just figure, well, that sort of family structure, that's just the American norm. And it's not. And it's very important to have that, But what I loved about what you were saying, Steph, and then I'll turn the mic back over to you guys, is saying, rather than sitting around bickering, just lean in to fun. And I like that. It's like you could complain that your house plant is dying. How about watering it regularly, putting it into the sun, picking off the dead leaves? rather than sitting and saying, "Boy, this plant's looking kind of shabby." Seriously?
But you mentioned having that well, Steph mentioned bringing the family back to the table. Everybody wanted to take their plate, go to their bedroom, go to the living room, go to the dining room, and everybody sit but eat when they wanted. So Steph came up with an activity where we themed our dinners, which you just mentioned, but we themed them around a movie. So one person in the family would prepare a meal that connected to a movie. So just an example, when you think of the Disney movies, we did a lot of these with, but like um, Princess and the Frog is a movie that
Right.
is in New Orleans, right? So one of us created a New Orleans style meal,
Did you
including
do that? You did that one.
including frog legs and the
Excuse
and the
me.
thinking of, but
Wait, actual frog legs?
oh yeah,
Yes,
yes.
he ordered frog legs and
So you
yes.
can, what we did was each kid also took their turn. So now instead of dreading coming to the dinner table, everybody got excited for their day. We did it like every other week or something. So in 2 weeks it's her turn, in 2 weeks it's her daughter, and then so you had to come up with the movie and then come up with your menu, and then you didn't share what the movie or the menu was.
Ah. Okay,
So
so
like
it's a surprise. It's a little
exactly. So, and
wow.
sometimes we played the movie while we were eating, and then you could like bring out different parts when they came out in the movie. The stage did that.
Well, there was lots of little rules like whoever's turn it was to um, plan the dinner, they got to choose, was it a sit down meal at the table or are we eating while we watch the movie? Our daughter always said while watching the movie because for her it was she was always preparing the food in the movie. So like there'd be something you're
Oh.
playing, she'd say you can't eat that yet, and then something would happen in the movie, she'd say okay now you can eat that, and we're like,
Ah.
and it took a little bit for us to catch on. So you also learn so
Yeah.
much about your family members, that things that
Mm.
you would never even think to notice when you start having these types of interactions.
But all
How
of a
old was
sudden,
she around that time?
the
She was a senior in high
yeah,
school.
senior in high school. So
Okay.
not only was dinner time, but dinner became an adventure, right?
Yes.
It became
Yes.
something exciting, and then just trying to figure out, oh, I know the movie, or oh man, I was wrong, or whatever. So
Okay. So it's almost like what do you call it, like a trivia game or something,
yeah,
It is.
yeah.
as well as
Yeah, it's
wow.
trivia. You can give hints through the week if you want, but yeah, it's trivia and excitement and learning. It's just all a great way to get everyone together at least once a week.
That is fascinating and funny about taking trivia and applying it to real life. I remember my last girlfriend, which was longer ago than I care to mention, but we met in a bar, and I was sitting there nursing the fact that I just gotten laid off from my last and best full time job, and I asked her for a phone number. She gave them to me. We were texting each other, and I said, here's the thing. Plus, I'm now getting over all of this nonsense about my dad. I says, let me kind of make this a little adventure. So I picked a restaurant, and I gave her clues. I didn't tell her where the restaurant was right away. I gave her clues, and she had to guess where the restaurant was. So by the time she figured it out and we got together and we had our dinner, it was
Yeah.
a bit of an adventure. And I thought, because other things say, okay, let's meet 8:30 next Thursday and blah blah. It's like, okay, that's kind of boring. Let's throw some spice. And I'd never done
There
that
you go.
before, but just and so that just reminded me of that, because this is how you can take regular everyday events. And I think it's great what you found out about your kids by leaving it up to them how they wanted to do it. You saw a side of the creativity and imagination of your kids that, I mean, senior in high school, that's like what, 16 to 18 years old around that time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I think she was 17.
right, so see, okay,
Yeah.
split the difference. And so even though you kind of, it's like my mom always used to say to me, I saw you become you, so what do you think I don't know about you? And yet here's some things that you're like,
Absolutely.
wow, look at you. That's kind of fascinating. And you get to see your own, progeny in a new light and see a new side of them.
Truth. Yeah, and we do it. I mean, there's other ways to incorporate. I love the giving ideas, like giving hints and guessing where to have dinner. That could be dangerous in New York City because it's a big city.
Well, I narrowed it down to a spectrum. I didn't want her guessing at the five boroughs and all that kind of stuff. That would have
Right.
taken,
Yeah.
months.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I love that.
So that I mean, and it sounds like it's not just related to your Steph and Jeff show or your podcast or even the couples outreach, but you've taken this concept to every aspect of your lives and yourselves together, and including your family, including your offspring, and I'm sure reaching out maybe to other relatives in your extended family even.
Absolutely. Our activities that we participate in. I mean, we've tried acupuncture. We have crystals. We got full moon ceremony. We've just laid out under the stars on a moonless night and watched the stars. We've create
Or,
meals.
or even like he mentions full moon. So meeting other couples
Yeah.
at the beach to watch the moon rise. You think of watching the sunrise at the beach and the sunset at the
Wow.
beach, but thinking about watching the moon rise. And so, yeah, it's just making ordinary things in life, things that happen every day, making them exciting and fun.
Yeah.
Wow. And I have a friend that I've known since high school. And when we were in high school, we lived near each other in Brooklyn. And we would hang out sometimes, and for almost like 6 to 8 months running, we did the backwards math. And it seemed that we tended to hang out for, once a month on the night of the full moon. It
Okay.
wasn't, it wasn't planned. It just happened to work out. That's when we were both free and we both decided to get together. But I've never watched the moon rise. That is such a, and again, I'm glad that we're having this conversation. That's something, and I consider myself a bit of a lunatic. In fact, I even wrote a song about the moon. But I've never done that. That's just a fascinating concept. And like you say, sunrise, yeah, sure. Sunset, same thing. But moonrise,
Just
that's
last
really
night.
fascinating.
Last
Ah,
night was the last night was the
interesting.
full moon, and over at Cocoa Beach, which is just an hour from us, the moon came right up over the ocean. The sun set about 6:50, and the moon rose about 7:20. And so you have the sun. If you looked west, you had the horizon with the yellows and the reds, and then over here and on this side it's dark, and then the moon came up just like the sun. It was so bright. But then this morning, when I drove to the office this morning, and I saw the moon set over the lake that's just down our road here from us. So got to watch the moon rise and then watch the moon set this morning as the sun was rising. And those are
But
things that we don't.
I'm going to interrupt for one moment. But if he had not watched the moon rise, he probably would have never noticed the moon
Right.
set.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
that's
yes,
the
yes. Of,
adventure of
of
life.
course.
Yeah. So if you don't expose yourself to new things, then you don't get those adventurous moments that have a ripple effect.
Right, right, exactly. So it's not just this one thing, okay, check that off of a bucket list or something. It's that has a ripple effect, like throwing a stone in a pond. And then there's all these other things, all these other perceptions. It's like, okay, I'm tired of everybody not having dinner together. Let's all sit and have dinner together. And then your daughter says, okay, I'm going to make it a theme, and I'm going to schedule the meal to the scenes in the movies, and I'm going to make it. And you're like, wow, that's like, I just wanted us all to sit around the dinner and stop going our separate ways. And look at where you took this and ran with it.
Well, if you think about it, we get life becomes repetitive in some instances, right? So we get up at the same time, we brush our teeth, we eat breakfast, we get in the car, we drive to work, we come home from work, we sit down for dinner, we maybe watch a little bit of a show, we kiss each other goodnight and go to sleep. And you can get into a routine where that is. But if you're looking for where the next adventures is, you'll see it. If your eyes are looking for it, it'll come to you. And one of the coolest things that I'm proud of is in this experience that we've done, our children have learned to open up to the world and to meeting and greeting other people. We went to a fish fry Friday night, and we were sitting at a table, in the lobby area, waiting for our to be called to go sit down in the hall, and there was a family that was just kind of standing over here in the corner. Well, there was a couple chairs left at our table, And so we invited them over. Hey, just come sit down here. And in 3 or 4 minutes before our table was called, we met this guy named Massimo Belloni from Italy, and his son was there with him, or his nephew that was there with him, and his nephew's wife. We learned so much about this couple, this small family, and that I'm still thinking about it today. And the energy, the guy works out the same gym that my father does. They're the same age. They both lost their wives within the last 2 to 3 years. So all of a sudden, my
Wow.
dad now has a guy that he can meet at the gyms, and it just comes out of being open to connecting, not just it's connecting to the universe, connecting to what's there. How many times do we just stand there and wait? Oh, when's our table going to come ready? We ended.
Connecting to community. We hear, I make fun of slogans a lot, and like Jeff's talking, and I just keep thinking, let's make community great again.
Yes, yes.
Making
And
America great. Why don't we
yes,
start in our community?
yes, exactly.
So
That's where,
let's make communities great again.
yeah.
And yeah,
And something I
Yep.
noticed between the two of you as Jeff was recounting the anecdote, and he said, "Son," and then he looked at you, and you both said, "Nephew."
Yeah.
And it was like you're both reliving it in sync with each other. And he's like, "Yeah, nephew, right?" And like almost like a psychic bond was there. That was pretty cool.
Thank you.
awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah.
It
And we've
happens a
got it
lot, actually.
recorded. And
Yeah.
that's why I wanted to point that out, because I
Yeah.
want people to see, especially those of us who are going to watch this on the YouTube channel, because of course the podcast is also going to be audio, but you can't see what's happening. That I like to think is part of this bond that you guys are building with the Steff and Jeff show, and just with the effort of intentionally connecting and reinforcing and strengthening your relationship together, that you kind of have that synchrony of minds
Yeah.
and a unity that I think is refreshing at any point, at any age, in any stage of a relationship. And I think that that's a great example, just that little thing. That's why I just felt it was, to point that out and say, folks, did you catch that? Did you see what just happened there? That was pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. And those things happen more often than they used to, those types of
Mm.
interactions. And I'm also noticing that, I mean, we're not perfect. We do argue, right? Like every couple argues, we get on each other's nerves. But I also notice that the way we're communicating in those times is changing as well.
Ah. Well, say a little more about
It's
that.
a natural occurrence, right? Like yeah, I think it's organically happening.
Okay. And would you say that it is you can disagree without bickering?
I
I'm just
think
throwing that out there.
we communicate more powerfully to each other.
Okay.
I wouldn't say there's no bickering, but there's less bickering.
Okay.
But here's the cool thing: when we realize that we're in the woods, that we've gone there, it doesn't take too long to find the path back out. And it's for
We
me.
notice the trees a lot quicker. We're in the woods, so we notice where there's trees.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Mr. Will Robinson. Hold
Where,
on a
where,
minute.
where'd you go? Where'd you go? I lost you in the thicket.
Yes.
We also know that all we have to do is just change and look for the path instead of continually on the path we're on, if that makes sense. You just look for the path back to each other instead of continuing down the path that you're on. Sometimes in life we want to be right, and that's how a
Ah,
lot of arguments and things come up, right?
yeah.
Do we have to be right? Can we both be right? Can I let her be right? Whatever it takes to get back on that same path. Ultimately, we're on the path that we want to be together. So when we do find ourselves in that area where we've drifted this direction, and we are find ourselves looking at the woods, all you got to do is look for the path back to each other. And when you love each other, when you have feelings, follow those feelings. The feelings will take you back to where you need to be.
Okay. It's kind of like it made me think of Hansel and Gretel and following
Yeah.
the breadcrumbs,
Made me
and
think of the big bad wolf and burning down the forest.
and but see that also harkens back to what you were saying earlier, Jeff, about rekindling that and remembering
Yeah.
the sparks and the butterflies, and what better time than when you find yourself kind of locking horns and bickering. It's like, hold up a second. This is the person that gave me butterflies in my stomach,
Yeah.
that made me excited just thinking of being with her again. So what the heck is going on here? Really? Is this where I want to
Yeah.
put my energy? I don't think so.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
Thinking about anchoring down, all this conversation just brings me to this concept of anchoring down. So when you're in those moments where you're having an adventure, you're having fun, like if you're at a moon, like somebody says, oh my gosh, I never thought about moonrise. And then here you find yourself sitting on a hill watching the moonrise, because not everyone can be at the beach. So you're watching it, but then just anchoring into that moment so that when you have those moments of bickering, your brain can go into, like you could go right into that moment that you're anchored in, the moment of where you're peaceful and tranquil and getting along and having a good time. And it just gives you a pause. Sometimes all we need is a pause. And you can pause and walk away, and it's creating space to come back together.
okay. Okay. Now I'm a bit of a techie here. I was looking through Amazon. I've been toying with the idea of getting myself one of those drones.
Yeah.
That I because I was thinking of doing some content creation. They got cameras on them, and of course the more expensive ones, which are like oh, okay, no, we're not looking at that one. But some of them, they have a GPS reset button, where if
Yeah.
they get lost or blown away by the wind, you just hit the button and it'll come back to the GPS location of where it originated. And you don't have to try and steer it against the wind. It's like, okay, I know. So that anchoring down kind of made me think of that. It's like, let's hit the reset button, hit the anchoring down button, and come back to that positive space, that happy memory. Forget where I was, forget how far adrift I got or why I got there. Let me come back to the center.
As you say that, you're triggering things for me that it makes perfect sense what you're saying. And the analogy you did with the drone is really good. If everybody could just hit that reset and it brought you right back to where you are, that'd be fine.
Yes.
But it doesn't always work that easily, right? One of the things, it has to be intentional, and one of the things you can't force it. One of the things
Ah,
that Steph and I have found that really works for us is to not make it happen in 5 minutes. Sometimes it takes an hour, sometimes it takes a day to come back to that space, right? So give each other that space, and not, again, the concept of being right is not as important as being in love, right? So let go of the being right, and then just allow that space. We always find the path back to each other, and
right.
obviously it's a lot better when you find that quickly. But if you don't force it, and that's one of the things that came out of what you were saying. You mentioned the wind and the things like that, and I can see people wanting to force themselves back
Yes.
to that perfect thing. It doesn't work. We're different. We love
Right.
each other because of those differences. One of the things I'm most proud of is the things that I'm weak at are many of the things that Steph has as strengths, and vice versa. So
Okay.
together, we're amazing. Apart, we're both pretty cool,
Yeah.
but we're not amazing. We become
Yes.
amazing together. And
Okay.
so when you just allow it to flow and be open, maybe
Right.
sometimes you just may need a few minutes. Sometimes I may need a few minutes. Sometimes I need to go take a walk to the lake. but
Sometimes I need a couple of days.
Yeah.
so
And that's such a great thing that you share there, Jeff. And thank you for sharing that it's easy to, oh, just hit the reset button. It's like, well, and using the analogy of getting lost in the woods, sometimes it depends on how far you got lost into the thickets that it's going to take you to get back to the trail of following your heart and following your love. If you got to get the machete and chop through the underbrush, that's going to take a little time. If you just took a few steps off and you're like, oh, wait a minute, no, 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 that's not the path. Let me just double back and come back to where I am. So not to make it a thing that you're going to be, but just to wherever I am working my way back from, let me, as the natural process for me, or allow her as the natural process for her, find her way back. And I say, aren't you there yet? You hit the reset button 20 minutes ago. What's going on? But to say, no, 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 we know. And here's the thing, and resting in the confidence that however long it's going to take or whatever the process is going to look like, that you will find your way back.
Yeah, I think that was a new concept for you. Like
Yeah.
when we were first married, we would get into an argument, and for Jeff, it would be like the end of the world. Oh my gosh, like the world's crumbling, and I would just look at him and be like, "Where's your reset button?" And he goes, "What? Where's your reset?" Because I raised my kids to reset. Like if my kid, when they were young, if they were arguing, I'm like, "Okay, we're having a really bad day. Who wants to reset their day? Let's go walk around the house. Let's go outside. Take your shoes off. Take your socks off. Put your feet in the grass. Walk around away from each other. You have to be arm's length away. And, now let's go inside. And how does everybody feel? We have fresh air in our body. We've spent a little bit of time in nature, and now we're reset. So now we can start over. You just start your whole day over." And he's like, "What? Who does that?" And I'm like, "We do." And I think if we teach people aren't used to that. But if you teach people how to do it, I think it's something that, will again, make community great again.
Yes, that's such a great concept, and I love that. And I hope that people who are listening to this and watching this will take that on themselves. Is not just to have a reset button as a term or a phrase or a metaphor, but whatever it looks like for you, find your reset process, your reset pattern, your reset path. And not just for yourself, but for the people in your life and your loved ones that you value, and have that as a concept to say, hold up, see what's happening here, let's reset. And then however that looks, because for everyone it's going to be different, for every group of people it's going to be different, but to work that together. And we could go on for hours, but of course I want to keep this in a reasonable time. And I just have to say thank you so much, Steff and Jeff, for joining us here. You guys have shared more than I even could have imagined, and it's just such a great insight. I can't wait to get this episode out there, and I know that there's going to be so many people who are going to benefit from this and what you've shared and your intention. And now, of course, the people who are listening to this can't see this, but I'm putting up here on the screen now. This is how you can get in touch with Steff and Jeff. It's the Steff and Jeff Show at gmail.com. Just spell the words out. The Steff with 2 F's, Jeff with 2 F's, the word, and the Steff and Jeff Show at gmail.com. And, they will give you information about how to get in touch with them, how to follow them on various social media, how to participate, especially if you're in the Orlando areas where you guys are down there in Florida.
Yes.
And you can participate in their live things. But you guys also do online events and things through, as you said, Facebook lives. And do you also do Zoom and things of that nature?
Yes.
Okay. And as I'm sure you guys have heard from this really amazing hour, that there is so much to, it's not just about, hey, let's have some fun, let's go get a couples retreat. This is a really, truly innovative and amazing process that, like I said, let's make community great again. And I've sort of said, with the MHEA thing, it's like, what? How about we just drop the last A? Because again, what time are we imagining was better than this? I mean, as a Black American, not for nothing, I hope you're not talking about the 50s or the 40s or the 20s, because
Right.
I don't know who it was great for. Wasn't so much great for me. If you're a woman before the 70s, you couldn't even get a credit card on your own. So how about just let's make America great? Because that
Right.
I'm down for. Any day, anytime, anywhere. Let's do that. And I love that you put out there, Steff. Let's make community great, because really, America is just a community of communities. So when we start with ourselves, we start with our family and our lives, and we make our community, our region, our state, our country. And hey, why stop there? Let's make it a great world for everybody.
Absolutely.
One family at a time.
Yes, yes. So as we're closing, is there anything you guys would like to just say, some parting words as we wrap this up?
My parting words, basically, Cornell, are, first of all, thank you for the platform and caring enough about what you've seen in Steff and in Steff and I to want to do something like this. So that to me marks that we're on the right path. You know us a little bit and you see something that was attractive, and that's what we're actually hoping, that people can see that in us. So thank you for seeing that and then putting us in the platform where we can share that. The last thing I want to really add is, being genuine is and having empathy and gratitude in this world. Those things are what really matter. I think Steff and I try to be genuine at all the time. We care about things. So we have great empathy, and then we don't forget to be grateful for what we experience and the context that we come in contact with. So those three things I just want to add in, I think, are very important.
Okay.
Very well
Steff?
said, Jeff.
Anything you like to add, Steff, before we close here?
Not a lot of sprinkling to do on that one.
Well, that is so great.
That
You
is very
guys
well
are,
said.
yes, it's a
Yes.
lovely couple and good friends of mine. And ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for the time that you've taken to listen to this in audio or to watch this, the video version of it. And I just like to remind you to always remember that failure is not a defeat. It's always a part of the process. And as you can see, failure is little more than just the first attempts in learning using real experience. And as always, remember to never quit and keep running. And I'll see you guys on the next episode. Hey.